Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar, Salesforce Lightning, a practical guide for making the switch. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box in your GoToWebinar control panel and we'll address them at the end of the presentation. I'd also like to remind you that a recorded version of this webinar will be sent to you following the session. Now, with further ado, we will turn the time over to Eric Shield, the CTO and co-founder of Magnet 360. Eric?
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today. I am also joined by Eric Walters, who's a solution architect with Magnet, and Eric's going to be covering why Salesforce Lightning is so important. I'm also joined by Jared Baker, who's going to give us a very practical guide in how to make the switch to Lightning. So for a quick overview of Magnet 360, I just want to sort of orient folks. We've been a Salesforce partner for 12 plus years. We're a platinum Salesforce partner. We focus on cross-cloud solutions, sales, service, marketing, commerce. We're a global organization with offices in North America, Europe, and Asia. We like to work hard and play hard, which is part of our rockin' culture, and that's really been reflected in multiple awards for best places to work, as well as multiple innovation awards from Salesforce, which we're very proud of. We really break our organization into three sections, which is Innovate, where we're focused on strategy, release planning, and architecture. We help our clients enable with project management, integration, full configuration, and development. And then we also offer ongoing management and support, as well as agency services for our Marketing Cloud customers. Magnet 360, we really consider ourselves to be unique because we offer that strategy upfront planning session, really understanding your go-to-market. We have deep Salesforce expertise, and we deliver all of this in an agile process designed to deliver speed to value. And one of the key elements of that is native whenever possible on the Salesforce platform. And that's really critical for Salesforce Lightning. Lightning offers the ability to do native things on the Salesforce platform and really open up a whole new set of capabilities. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Eric Walters, who's going to do a deep dive on our Lightning experience across a number of customers that we've worked with and sort of why Lightning is so important.
Thanks, Eric. Welcome, everyone. Well, Lightning is the evolution of CRM as we know it today. There's really three main pillars to the future of CRM as we see it, and Lightning Experience is one of them. The Lightning Framework and the Lightning Ecosystem all play parts of it. They're really going to help accelerate your business and the ability for your teams to do the things they need to do. Lightning makes everyone more productive, end users, admins, and developers alike. The Lightning Experience is the new Salesforce, and as such, the interface reimagines really, how CRM should enable every Salesforce user so they can be more effective and efficient. Your admins are usually looking for ways to make things quicker and deliver them the speed to market. So that's something that's going to definitely enhance their ability to get things done. Einstein, Opportunity Workspace, and Opportunity Kanban are just a few of the new experiences from a UI perspective. With the new Lightning Experience, there's tons and tons of new features. There's a plethora of Lightning features that are now going to be exclusive to Salesforce Lightning in itself. So the best way to go is to have that area. The original area that you would want to look at is like App Launcher, Favorites, Opportunity Workspace, Path was now available on all objects. Many will help you get things done faster and find information more easily. And then you can take advantage of things such as Einstein and Account and Opportunity Insights. In order for Salesforce to build the Lightning Experience, they needed a new developer framework, the Lightning Framework. Customizing the UI is something that both admins have been wanting to do forever, and I know in my old days of being an admin, I wanted to do that more than anything. With Salesforce Classic, though, it takes a fair amount of coding to be done with Visualforce in order to do that. Now, with the Lightning Framework, any Salesforce admin can develop and customize really without needing to write any code. That's the nature of the framework. Using the Lightning App Builder, it's easy to drag and drop all kinds of relevant functionality. That way you can build pages as you go, called Lightning Components. And you can pull them onto any page while you're in the Lightning Experience, and you can build quickly. Admins can really get started right away with both standard and custom Lightning components. That way they have the ability to use things that are there or things that they want to build as they go. The reusability of the Lightning components makes it easy to make your CRM look in the way you want it to be. This is a core component for admins and definitely any users that are trying to build more flexible pages. Essentially, the new framework is a component-driven architecture that lets you design and build quickly. That is one of the key core components. With the drag and drop nature of the framework, you can build without code, scale effectively, and be able to have faster iterations when building. And I don't know anybody that wouldn't prefer to have that as something that they can do. Utilizing Lightning app pages, you can build with templates provided, or you can build as you go. So you have that flexibility of using something that's kind of already there and ready to go without having to do much implementation work for it, or you can decide to completely customize it. It's up to you. You can also maintain consistency of style across apps with the Lightning design system, which actually lets you have more flexibility than you have today. With reusable components, you can actually build quickly and even take advantage of some of the things from the App Exchange and the Salesforce partners who design components. Magnet 360 does that. We have one that is quite often used as the geolocation component, and those are all things that you can use as part of your component build out. Your admins can readily deliver the power of the Lightning framework. They can flexibly create apps. People who love to work with clicks and not code are definitely suited for the Lightning framework and its abilities. With it, you have drag and drop experience design. You can actually customize every screen within Lightning Experience from both standard apps and custom ones, as well as custom pages and custom components that you want to build along the way. You can take advantage of responsive layouts that work everywhere and build smarter apps in everything you do with different things like Lightning Platform, the ability to enable Einstein and really utilize that to its greatest extent really allows every team to build intelligence into their apps and AI. One other component, and the third component to the new world, is the Salesforce ecosystem on the App Exchange. It's another part of the overall improvement with Lightning. You can access the Lightning Exchange directly from the Lightning App Builder, or you can go out to the normal App Exchange. With that, though, you have the ability to let developers and partners provide you with hundreds of apps and components all ready to use, and so you can create even faster. So not only can you do your own, but you can actually go out and reach out for people who have already kind of gone down that path and provided little tips and tricks along the way to create things that you might want to use. And at Magnet 360, we've also done exactly that with our Lightning Bolt Factory. It's something that we feel is really a benefit to our customers and the people we do engagements with. We were trying to make your life easier with pre-built industry-specific components and accelerators that'll get you up and running faster than any other way. This is something that Magnet strongly believes in, and we really drive this home. And as part of that, we offer all of these things as free to people who have engagements with us and with the projects we work on to really help solidify what that partner and what the customers can do with the application. And now I'd like to turn it over to Jared so he can help understand what the switch means for you.
Thanks so much, Eric. And before I dive in, I just want to say I'm really excited about this part of the presentation today. This webinar came out of a blog post that I wrote a few months back about practical tips for making the switch to Lightning. This all came out of conversations I've had with clients, as well as other developers and admins who've gone through this process, and it's really a lot of lessons learned. So I hope that you all find this really valuable. So the first step in making the switch I recommend to every single person that I talk to who's considering this is start out with some admin trials. All you have to do is on Salesforce Classic, go up to the top right corner, click on your name, and then click Switch to Lightning Experience. You don't have to turn on Lightning for your whole team, for your admins and maybe a handful of power users to start using Lightning right away. And what you're going to gain from this is some really valuable experience with the Lightning platform and a lot of understanding of what's working, what's not working, and what you're going to need to do in order to get Lightning ready for your whole team. When you're making the switch, you really want to use the tools that you have available to you. The 4 tools that I want to point out today are the Lightning Experience Migration Assistant, the Lightning Roadmap, Trailhead, and Salesforce's release notes. The Lightning Experience Migration Assistant is an incredibly powerful tool. I have used this a number of times for myself and my dev orgs, as well as for clients. And really what it provides you is a step-by-step process for going through the experience of turning on Lightning. On the first tab, when you first click into it, you'll see an introduction to the Lightning experience. There's a video there. There's a comparison between Lightning and Salesforce Classic. And then it also, just like I just recommended, points you to the ability to start a trial on Lightning. From there, you'll check readiness with a really cool integrated tool that actually goes through your org, figures out what some of the challenges might be, and sends you a PDF report that can help you to figure out where you need to focus your efforts. From there, you'll have the opportunity to preview the org in Lightning, start making some of those changes, optimizing Lightning with some new features. Finally, you'll be able to set up your users and then turn on Lightning for your team. The Lightning Experience Roadmap is really valuable for you admins who maybe have wanted to turn on Lightning for a while, but have been concerned that features that your team uses every day weren't yet available. This is where you can go to see what's available, what's not available, and what's coming. They'll also call out things that might not be on the roadmap, things that aren't going to be developed for the Lightning experience. So you can start to figure out how you can work around those challenges or come up with solutions that will meet your team's needs. A few examples that come up right here. You'll see that dashboards now show percentages on the gauges. And then in Winter 18, dashboards are now able to show combo charts within Lightning. And I definitely recommend you check out the Lightning Experience Roadmap because you'll see so many more features across Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, the platform, and everywhere else. Trailhead is such a powerful tool for learning Salesforce, and there are trails for every level of experience, from end users all the way up through very advanced developers and technical architects. When you're making the switch, you would probably want to consider having some of your sales team, for example, use the Lightning Fast with Sales Cloud trail. It's a great way for them to learn some tips and tricks for how to get the most out of Lightning as an end user. But for admins and developers, you'll probably want to take a look at make the move to the Lightning experience and get started with Lightning experience. These two trails are really focused on developers and admins and getting them spun up so that they can really be successful in this move to Lightning. And then finally, the release notes. Anyone who's been on the Salesforce platform for a long time hopefully is aware that Salesforce releases new features 3 times a year, and along with those releases come the release notes. This is a great way to understand what's new to Salesforce and sometimes also what's coming up in Salesforce in the next few releases. If you're making the switch to Lightning, this is a great place to go to understand some of the new features that are available that might be able to drive some excitement for your team, as well as maybe there are some features that you've been waiting for, looking out for. You'll be able to see in the release notes if those are now available and if there are any caveats, as well as how to start implementing those for your team. One thing that I think really gets overlooked when a lot of clients are making the switch to Lightning is the importance of having clean data. Clean data is always essential with a database, but when you're making a switch from Salesforce Classic to this totally new user experience that is Lightning, it's really important that you present your team with a clean database so that they're not distracted by outdated fields, outdated records, outdated objects. You don't have to get everything right off the bat. It doesn't have to be pristine and perfect before you make the switch. But this is really a great opportunity as you're considering making that switch and you're starting that process to take a step back, take a look at your data, take a look at your objects and fields, identify if there are any customizations that you don't need anymore, any fields that aren't necessary, and clean up some duplicates. And that'll really give you the most out of your Lightning experience when you make the move. Another thing that I strongly recommend is when you're making the switch, consider moving to consoles. Salesforce has made a lot of progress with their consoles over the last several years, and I think they've really come into their own over the course of the last year, especially with the Lightning experience. With this new drag and drop interface, it really brings consoles to a whole new level, and they're really ready to help your team sell faster, sell smarter, as well as your service team to service your clients and make sure that they're getting the best customer service experience possible. You'll also want to consider making the change from Visualforce to Lightning components. Eric talked a little bit about this earlier. Visualforce is the old technology. It still works within Salesforce's Lightning experience, but obviously you're going to get better efficiency. You're going to get a cleaner look and feel when you move to Lightning components. They're also going to be a lot easier to drag and drop, move around your pages. So one thing that you definitely want to look into is, do I have a lot of Visualforce pages? What are they? And how could they be improved by switching them to Lightning? And you'll want to start working on this early, because there's definitely going to need to be some QA, some testing to make sure that these are clean, efficient, working properly before you make the switch. There are a lot of new tools available in Salesforce's Lightning experience. Eric touched on these earlier: Sales Pass, Account Teams, lead scoring with Einstein, which I think is one of the coolest features that I've seen come out of Salesforce in the last decade. There are so many powerful new tools that are available once you turn on Lightning. And so when you're making the move, definitely take a step back, take a look at the new features that are available and see which ones might be right for your team. Now for some important lessons learned. It has been the case for quite some time that some important features just weren't available in Lightning. And that may continue to be the case for a while, depending on what your team does and what your team uses in Salesforce, as well as how much you've customized the system. If you identify that any features aren't available for your team, you'll want to work with them to see if there are any ways you can supplement those features. Consider maybe building a new tool that is Lightning compatible to replace maybe an outdated Visualforce page. If you've got anything that just isn't available, can't be easily supplemented, it's not a problem to maybe have some of those team members that are using tools that aren't available on Lightning stay on the Classic experience for a while. You don't have to move your whole team at one time. And if you have key team members doing key activities on Classic for a while, that's totally acceptable. There's nothing wrong with that. The rest of your team can still gain a lot of value over making the switch. Also, if you've got some team members that maybe just have a handful of tasks that still need to be completed within Classic, but can do the rest of their jobs within the Lightning interface, it can be really useful to train your team to make the switch back and forth to do those tasks on Classic and then move back over to Lightning when they're done. This is a great way to ramp up the entire team, even if there are some tasks that need to be handled in the old interface. And then definitely watch the roadmap for updates, because you never know when that's going to be updated and when you're going to start seeing some of those features that maybe they weren't on the roadmap to begin with, and it's updated and they're now going to come out in the next release. If you keep an eye on that roadmap, you'll know what's coming and you'll be able to plan for your team and identify when you can move all of your team over to Lightning. If you have a lot of customizations in your Salesforce organization, there can be some challenges there. The most important thing to do is identify if some of those customizations can be replaced by new standard features. This is especially important if you've been on Salesforce for a long time. I've worked with a lot of clients who, before Salesforce, for example, released account teams, had added a bunch of different lookups to users on accounts, on opportunities, so that they could easily manage the sharing settings so that they could easily add those team members and make sure that everyone was in the loop as they needed to be. But with account teams, that's so much easier and cleaner and more efficient. And all of the security is handled much more simplistically. You don't have to go through some of the apex that some of you might have seen in the past to handle the complex sharing rules there. So go through your org and see if maybe you've got some outdated features, some outdated customizations, and you can really ramp it up and do a better job with some of the stuff that comes out of the box now with Salesforce in general, as well as Lightning. Work with your team to identify any critical customizations that need to be replaced in Lightning. So if you've got any JavaScript buttons, I think that's a great example. JavaScript buttons don't currently work in Lightning, so you're probably going to need to find new ways to do that. There may also be some Visualforce pages that just don't look right when you get them into the Lightning experience. It might be important to change those over into components, and that way they'll be more reusable, they'll look cleaner, they'll be faster and more efficient. So definitely work with your team to identify what those are and prioritize those. Start building new Lightning components early to test before your go live date. I cannot stress this enough. Visualforce, we have spent so many years building these powerful, awesome Visualforce tools, and those still work, but don't forget that there is some complexity that can go into even doing these in Lightning components. And it's really important that your team takes the time they need to test these out and make sure that anything you do build in Lightning is going to be effective for your team as a whole. And then one thing that I recommend all the time is to build a roadmap for your team. Just like Salesforce has their Lightning roadmap, tell your team what's coming, when they can expect things. That way they know how to plan, they can voice their concerns, and they can prepare for the changes that are coming. User adoption is the most important thing of this entire process, and that's really what every single one of these tips and tricks is centered around. How do we make sure that your team really adopts this new system and that it is as effective as possible for your team? Some pointers on how to drive solid user adoption. First things first, give your team the opportunity to weigh in on your company's Lightning experience. Don't just go in as an admin, as a developer, as an executive, and start making these decisions and changes to your org. You have a lot of talented people on your teams who really probably have some great ideas about how Salesforce can work harder and work smarter for them so that they can work more efficiently and faster. Get their input, get their feedback. If you do that, you're going to find that this whole process is much more successful. Find and advertise any new exciting features to build some hype about Lightning. If you can hype up Lightning and get your team excited about getting onto this new experience, it's scary. You know, they've probably been in Salesforce Classic for a while. They may have come from another company or multiple companies that were already using Salesforce. We're familiar with Classic. It's so comfortable, and we know what it looks like, and we know how to do things. If you just flip the switch one day and all of a sudden everyone is in Lightning, that's scary. That's confusing. And you can drive a lot more positivity and a lot less stress by finding those features and telling your team, hey, you're constantly coming to me saying, how do I find the best leads? Well, we're turning on Einstein lead scoring, and this is going to help you really focus on the best leads for you so you can close more business. Anything you can find that's going to get your team excited, use that. Identify any respected team members to help everyone as they're making the switch. Again, go back to your team. Who are those power users? Who are the team members who have been with you for a long time, who have strong relationships with the rest of the team, who really know how you do business, and get them into Lightning early. Get them to start working with the system, start playing with it, so that on the go live date, you as the admin, you as the developer aren't going to be bogged down constantly by where do I find this and how do I do that and why isn't this working and I can't find that button anymore. Having those power users can really help to offset some of that challenge, they'll be the feet on the ground, really helping make that a successful implementation, successful go live day, and give you the opportunity to focus on maybe there are some things that need more testing. Maybe there is a challenge. They'll be able to point those out to you and get you spun up a lot faster and a lot more efficiently. And then this is something I think a lot of teams forget, which is the value of positive reinforcement. Reward your team for adopting Lightning and making recommendations for enhancements. Some clients that I've worked with have given out Starbucks cards, Amazon gift cards, iTunes gift cards. I've heard of pizza parties. I've heard of free drinks. I've heard of extra vacation. Whatever you think is going to motivate your team to really get in there and start using this new user experience. Anything you think is going to get your team to start giving you valuable suggestions about how to make it even better, do that, because that will really make this a huge success. So, in summary, start with admin trials. Don't dive in, don't try and get Lightning going for your whole team without taking a minute at first to take a look, go around, see how it works, see where some of the hang-ups are, see where some of the challenges are, figure out what's missing. Use the tools provided by Salesforce. Use Trailhead, the release notes, the Lightning roadmap, and then definitely use that migration assistant. I cannot stress enough how valuable that tool is. Clean up your data. This is such a great opportunity to clean up your data, clean up your org, make sure that what you're giving to your team is really as efficient and well thought out as possible. Take a minute to consider Salesforce's consoles. They're so much more powerful than they ever have been before, and now is probably a great time to think about maybe implementing those. Start converting your Visualforce to Lightning. Do that early so you've got plenty of time to prepare, to test those, to make sure that they're working the way you anticipate. And then finally, decide which new tools are right for you. This will really help to make your team more efficient as well as build excitement for the switch to the Lightning experience. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Eric Scheel again.
Thank you, Jared. That was great. I particularly liked your recommendation to offer employees extra vacation when enabling Lightning. I'm sure that would drive some adoption. I know we did not do that when we rolled out in 2017, so that might have helped some.
I was shocked when a client told me about that one.
Yeah, that makes sense. I would comment that, Magnet, we rolled out Lightning here in 2017, and for me personally, I was doing some switching back and forth to get a few of my tasks done when we first rolled it out, and then I switched over to start using the console application, and I haven't switched back to Classic since I did that. It really is, it's just one of the many recommendations we had in there, but for me, that made the difference in how I could do my day and work in Salesforce. The ability to have multiple console tabs open. It turns out I do about 6 different things in Salesforce on a regular basis, so I could just have those tabs open and really as a favorite, and it was great for driving my own personal adoption of the Lightning experience. So from a Magnet 360 perspective, we're available to really help our clients if you feel like you need help in this process. And just as we talked about, it all starts with running that Lightning Experience Readiness Report. And as you look at that report, it's got a lot of information in it. We've looked at a number of reports with our customers, and we're offering any of our customers the opportunity to just sit down with us and we'll do a review with you, and we'll give you sort of our take on, really if we can discover any gaps in sort of where you're at from an implementation perspective, whether that's, we've learned by looking at these reports, for example, that they don't really get into the complexity of your Visualforce. They're just sort of documenting how much Visualforce you have. And that's not the greatest measure to understand sort of that complexity that might exist there. So we'll look for gaps in sort of that complexity and how it translates to the user experience. And really, ultimately we end up with recommendations around how do you optimize that, whether it's building something that's a Lightning component that's replacing Visualforce, or whether you need a custom Lightning component because something's not available yet on the roadmap. We really go through that entire process of discovery and a whole set of optimization recommendations. Sometimes it's cleaning up data, cleaning up fields, looking at those features and capabilities. And then really it's up to you to decide how you want to enable this. Some of our clients, it's pretty straightforward and they take that information and they go on their own and enable. Others really want to have kind of a blended team where we can help do some of the heavy lifting. Maybe we're helping migrate some of the Visualforce components into Lightning, or we're helping with some of the data and cleanup. We certainly are there to support your teams and really take you through that entire process of enabling and driving user and adoption end to end, if that's what you're looking for in a partner. So it's pretty straightforward. Run that report, share it with us, and we can get started right away. So with the remaining time, we'd like to open it up for Q&A. We have plenty of time for Q&A, and then we'll wrap on next steps. So I know there have been a number of questions coming in, and so Natalie, do you want to tee us up on some of the questions?
Yep. Thanks, Eric. Just a reminder, just make sure to type your questions into the question box in your control panel. So we have a few questions. We'll start right now with, what change in Lightning will a developer notice when comparing with Classic, or is it all about easy navigation for admins?
Eric Walters, let me hand that one to you first.
Eric, are you on mute? We can have the other Eric help.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, what was the question? I couldn't, the tail end of it.
So it says, what change in Lightning will a developer notice when comparing with Classic, or is it all about easy navigation for admins?
No, it's not just about easy navigation for admins. From a developer perspective, there is an entirely new palette of options for them to be able to build pages, to create their own components, to be able to manage and update pages as they go. There is many options that a developer has that they will be able to build components, and that's an area probably the most beneficial for a true developer, is to be able to go in and create components that then can be reused. And that is really the key concept behind that, is that once you build them, the reusability can be across many pages within the application. So it's not just an admin driven platform for sure.
Yeah, the other thing I would have from a developer perspective is the Lightning framework was not developed in a vacuum. It's actually following industry best practices and standards that we've seen pioneered by companies like Facebook, where you create this component architecture and those components can interact in real time with data and with server calls. And so it gives you a much more live page versus having to hit like a page refresh to see new data. So it really opens up a whole palette of possibilities from a developer perspective. Go on to another question.
Great. Yep. The next question is, what can't Lightning do?
Sure. So I'll take this one. I think in short, the answer is Lightning can really do everything that the Salesforce platform has always been able to do, plus some cool new things that we were talking about earlier. I think that there are some things that might be a little bit more difficult to do in Lightning, simply in terms of if you've already got Visualforce pages that have been built out, and maybe they don't work as cleanly in the Lightning interface that need to be rebuilt. But outside of that, I think really Lightning can do pretty much anything that you need it to do.
Yeah, one of the other things too is that the ability for you to be able to work through all of it really does allow you the flexibility, as Jared called out.
Great. Next question is, will Lightning break my integrations?
Absolutely not, with one caveat. So if you have an integration that is merely a Visualforce page that's peering into an external system and showing data from that system in Salesforce on a Visualforce page, there you could run into some challenges. But outside of that, any standard integrations that you've got running in the back end should still function just as effectively on Lightning as they do in Classic.
Great. Next question is, I found Lightning buggy and slow. Do you guys think it's mature enough?
That is a great question, and honestly, that was my feedback about a year ago when I first started looking at Lightning seriously. I'd definitely been playing with it a little bit before, but a lot of the features I personally needed weren't available. And it was about a year ago that I started diving in and working with it. I was concerned about that. What I found is over the last year, Salesforce has really ramped up the development on the Lightning experience. It is far less buggy than it was even 6 months ago. I think that it really has reached that maturity point where I am comfortable recommending that clients make the move.
The other thing too I would mention is that early on they started off with Sales Cloud, and Sales Cloud is definitely more robust and has more complexity that has been built into it. They've obviously moved on to Sales Cloud, and Sales Cloud is coming along as well. It's not as complete yet, but in general, Sales Cloud is pretty efficient as well. So there's kind of the fringes that you might encounter that in, but in general, Sales Cloud is definitely online. Service Cloud's coming along, and the regular app cloud stuff is coming along as well. So as time progresses, as Jared mentions, we're definitely going to have more and more of those things being built in and refinanced.
Yeah, and I would say I've talked a lot to the product team about this, and it is a great question, and I would concur with everything that's been said so far. The product team has focused, frankly, a majority of their resources in the last 18 months on performance around Lightning, as well as then finishing out that roadmap with the rest of their resources, and it has improved greatly. The other thing I would say is using things like Council go a long way to helping with that. So Council, you can have multiple tab experiences going on for a user who's used Salesforce for a few years. It's very liberating, and each of those tabs can really load independently without having to load an entire page. So some of those tips and tricks can really help address that. The other thing that I've seen is custom development where, it's possible to develop Lightning components that are very slow. And so you do have to do some work to make sure that you optimize those, that you're not using the old model to retrieve all the data that might be displayed, for example, and then just stuffing it into a Lightning component, because that component's going to be slow. So there is some work to make it work really well, but they've made tremendous improvements, and it's something I think we can pretty confidently recommend now, certainly for Sales Cloud and in many use cases now for Service Cloud, per Eric's comment. Other questions?
Another question is reusability the major advantage with Lightning?
I'll take that one to start. So I think reusability from an admin perspective and a developer perspective is very likely going to be your number one focus on why Lightning. But I think that there's a lot more to it than just that. From an end user perspective, there are a lot of great new features. But also, as the system is improved upon and grows and matures, I'm actually starting to see some features that are actually working faster than they did in Classic. So end users are going to get more features and more tools available to them. They're going to get a faster, more efficient experience. And then, yes, admins, developers, you that are actually building the Lightning experience are going to find that reusability is a great feature that comes with Lightning for you.
Great. Next question is, are there differences in pricing for Magnet 360's offerings?
So
Eric Shield?
Yeah, I'll take this one. I saw this question, and actually I wanted to clarify two things, because sometimes we get the question, is there a pricing consideration from Salesforce in terms of enabling Lightning? And the short answer there is no. It comes with Sales and Service Cloud and App Cloud. So that should be available if you're licensed for those clouds to start using Lightning. Sometimes that is a question that's out there. And then from the way we work, really when we get that report, the readiness report, we'll be very transparent with you in understanding sort of where you're at, whether you're migrating all users or sets of users, what sort of things do we discover and what are those gaps? Should you wait until Salesforce builds something that closes that gap, or do you want to develop something custom? And so we're very transparent about that process. A normal simple implementation only takes a couple of weeks to really do this kind of a switch. but we've seen complex implementations where we need to develop a number of Lightning components, and we're doing quite a bit of cleanup, let's say, of data and process. So there's really a lot going on beyond just making the switch, but enabling some other pieces where those can take, 6 weeks, 8 weeks to do sort of a full rollout from that. And then there's a set of ongoing support services we certainly can offer. We give you all the tools to kind of enable that ongoing support to make sure that you drive adoption throughout. So it really varies, and we need to understand from that readiness report and a few conversations to be able to align specific pricing to the migration. But we're quite transparent and flexible in that space.
Great. Another question is, what's the downside if users only have Internet Explorer 11 as their browser?
Eric Walters, do you want to take a stab at that one?
Yeah, there can be some challenges, but what I would really recommend is that when you go through your readiness reports, part of that will be pulled out in there as well. But that is a case-by-case basis, and you may not have issues depending on how you're actually set up.
And this is where running that admin trial can really help suss out some of those challenges before you dive too deep. If you're seeing that you're having all sorts of problems with Internet Explorer when you're trying to play with it as an admin, maybe switch to Chrome or Firefox or another browser, see how that's working there. And if you identify that it is indeed your browser that's causing the challenge, that will give you the best answer.
Great. Next is whether embedding a Lightning component on a Visualforce page has a performance issue. What's the best way to use a Lightning component?
Sure. So I would say from what I've seen, Lightning components that are built 100% Lightning tend to be faster, tend to be smoother, tend to be less buggy. And a lot of that comes down to it's one platform operating on its own platform. Another thing that really seems to drive some of that performance is when you're dealing with Visualforce pages. So much of that is happening server side, which means it's happening on the back end of Salesforce. And so you're really dependent on how fast the servers are moving in order to serve up that data and make things look clean and work properly. So you can run into some minor performance issues when you're just embedding a Visualforce component into Lightning. Versus if you create a Lightning component that's 100% native Lightning, you're going to see the most efficient, smoothest operation there. So really, it comes down to, will you see some performance issues with Visualforce? It depends on what you've got. It depends on what that Visualforce is doing. Frequently, no, but occasionally, yes. But if you've got something where performance is really key, I definitely recommend considering rebuilding that in Lightning.
Yeah, and we've certainly seen that with clients where we identify what that optimization would look like, and then you have to decide whether that's just part of switching to Lightning or whether that fits into maybe how the process has changed or some other releases that you're doing with Salesforce. That's a common use case where we say, instead of just rewriting it for the sake of performance into Lightning, let's actually use this as a chance to upgrade some of the capabilities that have been, on your business's roadmap for a while. And so sometimes it's connected to other releases that you've been planning to do or things that you've had on your own roadmap.
Next question is, if I switch to Lightning just to try it out, does it impact anything in my org?
Nope, absolutely not. When you switch to Lightning to just try it out, you're not moving your team, you're not breaking anything. You're really just turning on a new user interface, and you can switch back and forth as necessary. Will you, as an end user, run into some challenges? Potentially, depending on what's ready for Lightning and what isn't, but it will not cause any large or org-wide problems making that switch on a temporary basis.
Great. And last question is, where can I find the Lightning Experience Roadmap?
Sure. So Lightning Experience Roadmap is available in the Trailblazer community. You can search for it there. And I think we can also send that out as part of the materials at the end of this webinar.
Great, so that wraps up the Q&A. I want to thank all of you for joining us today. If you guys have any more questions about what we talked about today or Magnet 360's offerings, or if you want to start your journey and do the readiness report and set up a review with us, you can send it to natalie.breon@magnet360.com, and we'll get back to you shortly. Thanks again for joining.